4 years ago, I adopted a 8-year-old boy who was given up for adoption for unknown reasons. He must have been neglected and abused by his heartless biological. Now, they are back and want my son back. Story 1. 4 years ago, I adopted an 8-year-old boy who was given up for adoption for unknown reasons. His name was Daniel. There was nothing wrong about him in my opinion. He must have been neglected and abused by his heartless biological parents as indicated by his nervous behavior. It took some time, but he warmed up to me and accepted me as his father, as I have accepted him as my son. My parents also accepted him as they had a history of adoption in their families. We had our challenges with life since I was a single man working to provide for Daniel. I made good income and I had very lucrative savings to live off of in case of emergencies. We lived peaceful lives until an incident rocked our worlds. Daniel was away at school and I was at work. While working as an average office clerk, my phone gave a notification for my doorbell camera. I checked and saw 4 people at my doorstep. They were knocking and ringing the doorbell demanding to be answered. I excused myself and informed my boss about the situation. She was understanding and gave me time to try to resolve the issue. I asked them through the app why were they at my doorstep. The 4 people comprised of 2 women and 2 men. A pair of 1 man and 1 woman looked to be seniors while the other pair seemed to be the age for parents of young children. The parent pair introduced themselves as Daniel's bio parents and the senior pair were his maternal grandparents. I was surprised they had found our address and came to the door. I never met them even during the adoption process since Daniel was in the foster care system for a year before his adoption. Daniel's bio parents told me they wanted Daniel back after their other son had passed away from a car crash last month. I never knew Daniel had a brother, let alone a sibling. I felt bad for Daniel's bio brother's demise though. They explained they gave up Daniel because they couldn't care for both kids. Daniel's brother was older and needed more care than Daniel. They tried but they couldn't care for Daniel and his brother at the same time. This ticked me off since I learned from the social worker that Daniel may have faced neglect and some level of abuse during his younger years under his bio parents' care. They signed their rights away, which meant they can't get Daniel back no matter their remorse. I told them it was not possible since they signed away their rights. I am legally Daniel's father and it's been a few years already. Plus, I won't give him up to people who abandoned him once after making his life miserable. The loiterers looked upset at my reply and threatened to call CPS on me and take me to court. They left afterwards without any more to say. For the rest of the day, the threats weighed heavily on my mind. What if they did regain custody of Daniel and what will happen to him? I knew I had to consult a lawyer about this before things escalate to the extreme. I managed to hide the turmoil from Daniel when I got back from school. When Daniel went to bed after dinner and he finished his homework, I called my parents about the situation. They were quite unnerved at the incident and told me I should get a lawyer about it as soon as possible and prepare to defend myself in court. They say I should report this to the police or CPS or any agency before they do. I like to think I'm ready to keep my son, but I'm still worried and fearful of losing him in court. I'll update later if anything comes up. New update. It's been a while since the last post, and I just recently discovered Daniel's brother is still alive. He's suffering from leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. The whole reason why Daniel's bio family reached out was to have Daniel tested to see if he was a match. They hoped to regain custody of Daniel through such a bizarre method. I took the steps to ensure my son was safe. The school was notified of the situation, I filed a police report about the incident, CPS was informed about it as well, and my lawyer sent Daniel's bio family a cease and desist letter. The authorities are currently trying to find out how Daniel's bio family found my address. I found out about the truth 2 days ago from someone who claimed to be Daniel's paternal grandmother. She came to my door with a fearful and concerned expression on her face. I was initially suspicious of her until she told me Daniel's older brother was never dead. There was no car crash. After I let her in, she told me the full truth of everything. Daniel's older brother, Vincent, had been the golden child of Daniel's bio family. They coddled him and gave him everything he wanted. Daniel was given none of that and was constantly beaten and abused for everything Vincent did wrong. Eventually, Daniel's bio parents gave him up for adoption. Daniel's maternal grandparents supported the action while she and her husband, Daniel's paternal grandfather, were shocked, appalled, and furious. They only found out about Daniel when Daniel's maternal grandparents told them about the adoption. Daniel's paternal grandparents had a falling out with Daniel's bio father a year before Vincent was born. If they knew about what Daniel had to face, they would have tried to get custody of Daniel. They completely cut ties with Daniel's bio parents since then. Recently, Daniel's bio parents reached out to them asking for some help. Vincent was in need of bone marrow for treatment, and they hoped Daniel was a match to be able to donate. They wanted Daniel's paternal grandmother to come to my house to pressure me into agreeing on Daniel's behalf. I'm frankly disappointed with Daniel's bio parents and their reasons for wanting Daniel back. I had a little bit of consideration they may be actually remorseful and wanting to make amends. Guess I'll have to throw it away now that I know the truth. Daniel's paternal grandmother Kathy wanted to warn me about strangers approaching Daniel and me about saving lives through taking risks or something similar. She gave me her phone number and told me to call if Daniel wanted to meet her and his grandpa. She left in her white sedan she arrived in and drove off. Needless to say, they won't be getting anywhere near Daniel. I'll tell Daniel about the truth why his former parents want him back. I told him about the incident previously and he refused to have anything to do with them. After telling him the truth, he's definitely certain he won't have anything to do with them. He told me Vincent treated him badly and he doesn't want to help a bad brother. I won't pressure him to donate against his will, especially with the negative health effects I heard about donating bone marrow. Daniel doesn't deserve to suffer any of that without any gratitude from recipients. Regarding his paternal grandparents, Daniel is interested in talking to them and meeting them. Me and them are setting a time for them to meet Daniel on Thanksgiving break. My parents also expressed interest in meeting them as well, and vice versa for the paternal bio grandparents. It'll be at my parents' house. I'm going to expect unwanted solicitors acting on behalf of Daniel's bio parents in the future. So, I'm going to send Daniel to my parents' house, which is closer to his school. In fact, they live right across from the school entrance. My parents have been informed of the truth, and they swore to protect Daniel. Hopefully, we can deal with the challenges to come in the future. It's better to be safe than sorry in the long run. I'll update if major events happen in the future. Story 2. I am the affair baby. Chapter 1. I am the affair baby. That's right, the living, breathing reminder of every scandalous headline and whispered judgment. My mother? The infamous homewrecker everyone loves to hate. Because of the circumstances of my birth, my story will always be seen as inseparable with the story of my parents. My mother's father abandoned her and divorced my grandmother for another woman, leaving a trail of resentment in his wake. My grandmother, shattered and bitter, drowned herself in alcohol and made my mother her personal punching bag, both physically and emotionally. At this time of darkness, she crossed paths with my father, the CEO of a prominent corporation. The story goes that my dad was looking for romantic fun elsewhere, and subconsciously, probably emotional value as well. After a bond created and moments of love and passion, my mom became the clingy thorn he couldn't shake off. Back then, my teenaged mom was young and beautiful, hard for any man to resist. My dad thought he had it all figured out. Spend some money to keep a mistress, no big deal. But how can you use paper to wrap and hide fire? My mother got pregnant. It was then my father admitted his marital status and true colors, believing that she will stick with him regardless at this point. Which he was right, just not the way he'd like. My mother didn't want to return to her mother, nor did she want to blow out the only light in her life, but what she didn't know was, it is nothing but a fall without an end for her. My father thought he had everything under his control, but little did he know, my mom had bigger ambitions. After all, she was educated on the whole one pair of couple type of romance and marriage is the ultimate goal. When her attempts to be the only one failed, she resorted to dramatic tactics, crying, throwing fits, and even threatening to kill herself, and brought me into this world. I was born a month premature. Why? Because when my mom heard that my dad's wife had given birth, she rushed to the hospital for a C-section. The moment the anesthesia wore off, she called my dad, demanding he come and acknowledge his crying newborn daughter. My dad turned off his phone. Honestly, I don't hate him at all. Who wouldn't regret getting involved with such a relentless woman? Anyone in his shoes would wish they could rewind time and put their pants back on. Unfortunately for him, because of me, he couldn't get rid of my mom. She warned him. If he dared to abandon us, she'd take me and jump from the balcony of his company building. When it came to dramatic ultimatums, my mom was a woman of action, not just words. At least she created enough of a spectacle to get the desired effect. My dad set us up in a small apartment and sent us some living expenses every month. My mom's stubbornness and shameless persistence ensured we had a roof over our heads. My earliest memory of my dad involves my mom calling him non-stop for a month, escalating to her attempting suicide using sleeping pills and cutting her wrists multiple times. Finally, he begrudgingly showed up at our apartment. He tossed down a stack of cash with a look of irritation. "Isn't this all you want? Tell my secretary next time. Don't call me again." My mom immediately launched into an old tirade, her voice sharp as a train whistle. "Christian, where is your conscience? Do you remember back when?" My dad, long immune to her complaints, pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. It's Bella's birthday today. I have to go. Bella Baldwin, was the daughter he had with his wife. She and I were born on the same day, in the same year. The perfect child in the perfect family, while I was just an unwelcome reminder of his mistakes. My mother dragged me forward, holding me up like a trophy. And what about her? She's your daughter too. Or have you forgotten? His face darkened as he turned toward the door. But my mother wasn't done. She clung to his leg, wailing about betrayal and abandonment, tears and snot staining his tailored pants. Her sobs echoed in the cramped apartment, a painful soundtrack to their endless battles. No one paid attention to me, the prop in their endless drama. I walked over to the coffee table, looked at the stack of money, and asked my dad, "Are you very rich?" He hesitated before awkwardly nodding. I picked up the money, struggling to lift it, and held it out to him. "I don't eat much, so I don't need this much money. Can you stay with me for a few minutes instead?" I saw the surprise and shock in his eyes. After a brief pause, he stiffly sat down on the sofa. I grabbed a tattered booklet, an ad giveaway from the supermarket with simple stories and cartoon characters. Climbing onto the sofa, I sat beside him and placed the book in his hands. Without a hint of flattery, I asked naturally, like any child craving their father's attention, "Can you read me a story?" And so he did. Awkwardly, mechanically, he read a short passage. I listened carefully, gradually leaning against his arm. When he was about to leave, I stopped him. Taking a small, smudged birthday cake from the table, I solemnly handed it to him. It took him a moment to realize. "Today's your birthday too?" I nodded shyly. For once, he looked a bit uncomfortable, rubbing his hands together. "I came in a rush and didn't bring you anything." I beamed and raised the booklet in my hand. "I already got the best birthday present." The next day, I received a doll taller than me. I was 5 years old that year. Some children learn to walk or talk early. My gift was different. By then, I already knew how to read the room, watch people's faces, and calculate every move. It was a survival skill I'd need for the rest of my life. Chapter 2. After that, my dad started visiting us once or twice a month. He'd sit with me, tell me a story, and chat a bit. Occasionally, he'd take me out for a meal. He would console and sweet-talk my mom when convenient, or when he wanted something for himself. One day, he came over while my mom was drinking alone. She didn't realize how much she was becoming like grandma, bitter, resentful, and quick to lash out. She yelled at him, hurling all her anger and frustration. My dad said little at first but eventually sat down and poured himself a drink. He talked about the shitty things going on in his marriage and life. Together, they drank, trading complaints about their miserable lives until the night blurred into nothingness. The next morning, they woke up next to each other in my mom's bed. My dad looked utterly devastated. Turns out, people really can trip over the same stone twice. 9 months later, my little brother was born. The first time I saw that wrinkled little creature, I thought he was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. His toothless mouth opened wide as he bawled, his face flushed red. I reached out a finger to touch his tiny cheek. Instantly, he stopped crying, turned his head, and latched onto my finger, sucking on it with all his might. With my brother's arrival, my dad moved us into a bigger apartment and doubled the monthly allowance. Life improved a lot. Holding my baby brother, my mom's old ambitions reignited. She kissed his little face and boasted to me, "That woman your dad married only gave him a daughter. But me? I gave him a son. Because of your brother, your dad will have to treat us well." All because a passing comment my dad made years ago, back when they were still in love, that he'd always wanted a son. It was all in her dreams, of course. My dad had no intention of divorcing his wife, let alone marrying my mom. "Eileen Blanchard," he warned, "don't you dare get any ideas. If you dare bring this up to Delilah, I'll make your life a living hell. You're always talking about wanting to die. Why don't you go ahead and do it already?" Later, I learned that Delilah's family was the reason my dad was so successful. Divorce was never an option. My mom shoved my brother into my arms, screamed, and head-butted my dad in the stomach. "Why don't you just kill us all?" My brother burst into tears. I held him tightly, coldly watching the chaos unfold. If I could have chosen my parents, I'd never have picked them. The fight ended with my mom battered and bruised and my dad sporting a bloody scratch across his face. From then on, my mom stopped dreaming of a future with my dad. She finally understood that nothing she does would change anything. With her dreams dashed, she shifted her focus. "Who cares about a wife title?" she said. "You two are his kids. He can't deny that. From now on, I'll spend his money like there's no tomorrow. Why not? Not spending it would be a waste. She threw herself into gambling, staying up all night at the tables. She stopped caring about her looks or figure. Whenever I went to fetch her from a game, I'd find her shoving greasy pizza into her mouth, yelling things like, "Hit me, come on. I'm all in." Her world revolved around cards, dice and alcohol. From elementary school, I reluctantly took on the responsibility of caring for my brother, Jamie. While other kids' first words were mom or dad, his were sissy. When other kids cried, they ran to their parents. When he cried, he came to me. I used to resent this little burden. Because of him, I had no childhood. I couldn't play like other kids. After school, I had to go straight home. My mom would head out to either gamble or drink, leaving my 2 to 3-year-old brother locked at home alone, crying until he was hoarse, covered in filth. One stormy night, she didn't come back. Thunder roared outside, and I huddled under my blanket, trembling. I've always been terrified of thunder. It's like a wild beast, ready to devour me. In the dark, a tiny figure climbed into my bed and snuggled into my arms. Just as I was about to comfort him like countless times before, he gently patted my back and murmured, "Don't be scared, sister. Don't be scared. I am here. I will protect you." I cried and held him tight. He was 5 years old that year. That was the moment I truly understood what love between siblings meant. Chapter 3. When Jamie was 12, I was admitted to the finance program at Harvard University with full scholarships. A new life full of hope lay ahead, filling me with boundless anticipation. But I couldn't stop worrying about Jamie. Living with our mom, a woman as unreliable as the wind, meant even basic needs like 3 meals a day weren't even guaranteed. Jamie had just started middle school, still a chubby kid who hadn't hit puberty yet, but he spoke with the maturity of an adult. "Sis, don't worry about me," he said, his voice steady. "Go to Massachusetts. I can take care of myself, and mom too." That summer, with the money I'd saved from part-time jobs, I hired a nanny to look after the household. Yet my heart remained heavy as I left for college. College life was enriching and vibrant. For the first time in my 18 years, I felt like I was truly living. Nobody here knew I am the affair baby. There was no ridicule, no bullying. Nobody treated me differently or believed I had fewer rights because of my parents. I didn't have to deal with mom's gambling and drinking or a paternal family who pretended I didn't exist. But less than a month after I left, Delilah, my father's wife, discovered Jamie and me. She had never known we existed, not because my father was particularly good at hiding us, but because she never cared enough to notice. We were weeds, left to grow wild. It was my mother who exposed us. Deep in gambling debt, she went to my father for money. When he refused, she went straight to Delilah. Delilah showed up at our rundown apartment, her lips curled into a sneer. She offered my mom $50,000 to take Jamie and disappear. Mom laughed in her face. "50,000? What do you take me for, a beggar? I gave birth to 2 of Christian's kids, and one's a boy. So what if they're bastards? Don't think I don't know the law. Even illegitimate children have inheritance rights. My kids will get their share of the family fortune one day." Delilah smirked and left without another word. I don't know how she confronted my father afterward, but the next time she came, her offer had risen to $500,000, on the condition that Jamie would live with her and my mother would relinquish all parental rights. My mom, cornered by her creditors, saw the money and her eyes lit up. By the time I learned what had happened and tried to stop it, it was too late. Jamie had been taken to live with Delilah and my father. I called my mom, furious. "Jamie is only 12. How could you send him to live in a house where he'll always be an outsider? Don't you understand how Delilah might treat him?" My mom, now debt-free, replied nonchalantly, "Why wouldn't she treat him well? Jamie is your father's son, which means they come in a package together. If she had a problem with being a stepmother or with his infidelity, she'd have divorced him. Your brother is living the high life now, big house, people tending to him. Don't be jealous just because your father wanted a boy. Once your brother settles in, we'll all benefit. He'll take care of his sister once he's rich, won't he?" I snapped. "Bring Jamie back. Even if we have to scrape by, at least he'll be safe." She sighed, exasperated. "Bring him back? And who's going to take care of him? You? Don't ruin his future. He's with his father now. That's where he belongs. I raised you 2 for over a decade. It's Christian's turn to step up. Besides, the money's gone. What if they ask for it back? Do you have $500,000 lying around?" I hung up, seething. Desperate, I called my father. "What's going on? What does Delilah plan to do with Jamie? He sounded irritated. Your mother caused this by begging Delilah for money. That's how she found out. But honestly, it's generous of Delilah to take Jamie in after everything. He's my son. This is his chance to reconnect with his roots. So my father saw it as a good thing, even thanking Delilah for her generosity. Swallowing my frustration, I pleaded, Dad, since Jamie is staying with you, please look after him. He's only 12 and needs his father's guidance. With your success, I'm sure he'll grow up to be just as accomplished as you. The words tasted like bile, but I knew his ego thrived on flattery. Far away in Massachusetts, all I could do was hope he'd protect Jamie from Delilah and her daughter Bella. I called Jamie every day. At first, he chattered on about how he was adjusting to the new house. He said Delilah always looked stern, and Bella didn't like him. He was confined mostly to his room. Over time, his updates grew shorter. I'm fine, he said. The food's good? Then one day he whispered, Sis, I want to come home. I don't want to live here anymore. I can cook for myself, I can make sandwiches and even pasta. His words shattered me. Fighting tears, I promised, Jamie, give me 4 years. Once I graduate, I'll bring you to live with me. After a long pause, he whispered, Okay, sis. I'll wait for you. But just days later, while I was working a shift at McDonald's, Mom called, sobbing. Alice, something's happened to your brother. A deafening buzz filled my head as I stood frozen. I barely heard her wails. Why? Her words faltered, choked by sobs. He's my son, I thought he'd be okay. I thought this would give him a better life. My son didn't even get to enjoy his life and his fortune, and now he's gone. It took me minutes to process what she was saying. Jamie had eaten a macaron at my father's house. He'd suffered a severe allergic reaction, and died. I was paralyzed. At 2, Jamie had a reaction to peanut butter so bad I dragged Mom from her card game to rush him to the hospital. The doctor warned us, his nut allergy was life-threatening. Both my parents knew this. I had drilled it into Jamie, and he'd been careful ever since. As he grew older, he could tolerate small exposures, but I couldn't fathom how much he'd eaten for it to be fatal. The phone slipped from my hand as I clutched the table for support. Pain surged from my chest, consuming my entire being. The little brother who comforted me during thunderstorms, who promised to wait for me, was gone, before I could bring him home. Chapter 4. 6 years later, when I returned to this city, I had already completed both my undergraduate and graduate studies at Harvard. During those 6 years, I lived away from home, working for extra cash entirely on my own. I never came back, nor did I contact anyone from here. I just couldn't bring myself to. Jamie was like a scar on my heart. Until my wings were strong enough, I didn't dare reopen that wound. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to handle it. My mother still lived in the same apartment. She was only in her 40s, but years of late nights playing cards and an undisciplined lifestyle had left her bloated and prematurely aged. Her youthful beauty was long gone. When she opened the door and saw me, she froze. For a full minute, she just stared. Then, wiping her tears with a rough hand, she said bitterly, So, you're finally back. I was starting to think you'd forgotten you had a mother. Jamie would have never abandoned me like this. He cared. If only he were still here. He's been gone for 6 years, I interrupted coldly. Stepping into the apartment again, I felt the weight of everything that had changed, or maybe everything that hadn't. My mom dried her tears and suddenly brightened, ushering me toward the couch. You're back, that's what matters. After all these years in school, you've finally made something of yourself. Now I can count on you. I glanced at the couch, piled high with dirty laundry, and instead sat at the dining table. As she busied herself making me a drink, I stopped her. There's no need for that. I'm only here to ask one thing. When you sent Jamie to live with Delilah, did you tell her about his nut allergy? Of course I did. Her eyes flared with indignation. I told her over and over, no nuts, peanuts, almonds, cashews, anything like that. Delilah said she understood. And Jamie was 12. He knew better too. He was always careful. I didn't respond. Ignoring her pleas for me to stay, I left with only one thing, a photo of Jamie on his 12th birthday, the one I had taken. In it, he was smiling, his crescent-shaped eyes full of joy, showing off his small, perfect teeth. I had a copy, but I couldn't bear to leave the original behind in that place. I arranged to meet my dad at a cafe. He looked much the same. Men really do age better. It was an accident, he said hastily as soon as we sat down, as if eager to absolve himself. I told our housekeeper, Amanda, that Jamie couldn't have any nuts. But that day, she made macarons, left it on the table, and forgot to warn Jamie. He ate it without knowing. The next morning, Amanda found him in his room. "And you? You didn't notice anything unusual the night before?" I couldn't stop myself from asking. He avoided my eyes. "I wasn't home. I had a dinner meeting. Your stepmother said Jamie seemed fine after dinner, except for a little rash on his face. He didn't say he felt sick, just went to bed like usual." I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking against the cup, but my heart felt like it was being crushed in someone's grip. How terrible must it be to suffocate to death alone? Did Jamie struggle through the night by himself? Did he call out for help? Did he try to call me, his sister? These questions, the ones I had avoided for 6 years, now flooded over me like a tidal wave, drowning me. After it happened, Delilah immediately laid off Amanda. My dad emphasized again. It truly was an accident. Your stepmother and sister both adored Jamie. When he passed, Bella cried the hardest. I took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter, but not nearly as bitter as the memories. I forced a calm smile, swallowing down the storm of emotions. "Dad, let's not dwell on the past. It's painful for both of us." He visibly relaxed. "You're right. No point in dwelling on it. So, what are your plans now that you're back?" I gave him a small smile. "I majored in finance management. I'd like to work at your company." Chapter 5. My dad hesitated, looking uncomfortable. I sighed softly. "Jamie used to tell me he didn't get to spend enough time with you. He really admired you, but you were always so busy. Now that he's gone, I thought maybe I could stay by your side, to honor him in a way. Plus, you're so successful, practically a legend here. I'd love to learn from you." Seeing his expression soften, I pressed on. "I'll start at the bottom, just like any regular employee. I promise I won't throw your name around or embarrass you. I'll even tell everyone my name is Jenny Bennett, so no one will know I'm your daughter. I won't cause you any trouble, I swear." He couldn't bring himself to refuse outright, but he didn't exactly give me what I wanted either. Instead of placing me in the headquarters of Nova Group, he secretly arranged for me to work at one of its subsidiaries, a venture capital firm, starting as a business associate in the development department. The HR manager at LB Investment, who had worked with my dad for years, helped keep my identity under wraps. No one knew I was Christian Baldwin's daughter, not even my colleagues. I even kept my education credentials a secret. My job involved handing out surveys on the street and collecting responses for feasibility analysis. It was simple, repetitive work. Most of my coworkers didn't take it seriously, hiring students to hand out surveys and pester random pedestrians. The approach annoyed people, so hardly anyone stopped to fill out the forms properly. I studied the surveys carefully, identifying the right target audiences. For example, e-commerce projects were aimed at young adults, early education projects targeted new moms, and shared e-scooter projects were for office workers. By tailoring my approach, my analysis turned out to be useful and well received by clients. It didn't take long for Henry Smith, the company manager, to notice me. During a work report, I casually mentioned that I'd graduated from Harvard, and his surprise was obvious. "A Harvard graduate doing surveys? That's such a waste of talent," he said, promoting me to team leader soon after. Within 2 months, I led my team to successfully secure 2 projects. My performance turned heads across the company. After the contracts were signed, I quietly let HR inform Henry about my master's degree. "Why didn't you mention your education when you started here?" Henry asked. "You could have gotten a better position right away." I kept my tone steady. A degree doesn't prove anything. Skills and results are what really matter. A lot of companies think new hires have high expectations but don't deliver. I wanted to prove myself through hard work, not credentials. That's how, in just 6 months, I became Henry's assistant. As his assistant, I was no longer dealing with small-scale projects worth tens of thousands. Instead, I started working with publicly traded companies, accessing higher-level resources and opportunities. One day, during a client meeting, I overheard that Crest Group had a billion-dollar investment project requiring evaluation. Coincidentally, Crest was hosting a corporate cocktail party that evening. I slipped into a season's latest burgundy Gucci wrap dress, styled my hair into loose, voluminous curls, and went for a bold, vintage-inspired makeup look. The event was held at the Evergreen Hotel. I thought I looked the part and would blend in easily, but security at the entrance was checking for invitations. "Excuse me, ma'am. Can I see your invite?" the guard asked. "Just a moment," I said with a polite smile, pretending to search my purse while scanning the area. Right then, a tall, sharply dressed man strode past. He didn't have an invitation either, but the guards didn't stop him. I quickly caught up, hooked my arm through his, and smiled up at him. "You're walking so fast, couldn't you wait for me?" He turned, startled. He looked about 30, with sharp, chiseled features and captivating eyes. The security guards watched us walk in without a word. Once we were out of their sight, I let go of his arm and said, "I'm so sorry, I thought you were someone else." He smirked, his dark eyes sharp and probing, as if he could see straight through me. Then he gave a slight bow. "It's an honor. Enjoy your evening," he said before disappearing into the crowd. Chapter 6. I scanned the room and quickly spotted my target among the guests, Andrew Williams, heir to Crest Group. 25, freshly returned from studying at England. He also happened to be the fiancé of my father's eldest daughter, Bella Baldwin. Apparently, the two families had been close for generations, with strong business ties. Andrew and Bella were basically grew up together. I grabbed a cocktail from a passing tray and approached Andrew from behind, slipping into his blind spot and positioning myself by his side. He had an air of refined intelligence, polished, poised, and far too reserved to match the image of a successor. If anything, he looked more like a freshly graduated college student. At the moment, he was deep in conversation, his expression attentive as he nodded and smiled occasionally. Maybe sensing my presence, he glanced at me out of the corner of his eye and, almost instinctively, rested a hand around my waist. I let out a soft, startled, "Oh." He froze at the sound, quickly turning to face me. His eyes widened, and his face flushed as he pulled his arm away. I'm so sorry. I thought you were—" Before he could finish, a woman stormed over, her expression thunderous. Without missing a beat, she looped her arm around his as though claiming her territory. It was none other than Bella, my father's eldest daughter, my half-sister, and Andrew's fiancée. Until now, I'd only ever seen her in photos. I gave Andrew a casual smile. "It's fine." Then, glancing at Bella, I offered a polite nod before strolling away. Bella's lips tightened as she adjusted her burgundy Gucci wrap dress, clearly uneasy. Yes, we were wearing the same dress. I knew Bella loved Gucci, so I'd done some research, found out she had bought this exact seasonal piece, and rented the same one. Though she bought hers outright, I couldn't afford to. It cost 6 figures. Even renting it had set me back an entire month's salary, not to mention the matching heels and clutch. I'd gone all in for this. The same dress can look completely different on two people. On Bella, with her fuller figure, it was bold and striking, emphasizing her curves. On me, thanks to regular running and workouts, it highlighted a toned, slender silhouette. My waist, by comparison, was impossibly small. Bella had paired the dress with a diamond hairpin, a necklace, earrings, and a bracelet, beautiful but a bit overdone. I wore no jewelry at all. My loose jet black hair and red lipstick gave me a simple natural elegance, making my skin look even fairer. Bella leaned in to whisper something to Andrew before disappearing toward the lounge. If I had to guess, she'd gone to change. Women like her didn't show up to events without a backup dress. I was helping myself to some fruit at the buffet when Andrew approached, picking up a few slices of pineapple. "I'm really sorry about earlier," he said. I turned to him with a bright smile. Honestly, being hugged by a stranger was less awkward than wearing the same dress as someone else. I tilted my head and gave him a teasing wink. "Do you think women are too dramatic about these things?" He laughed, his boyish smile lighting up his face. "Maybe a little," he admitted. "Anyway, it's not your fault," I added, popping a piece of fruit into my mouth. "I came over on purpose to get close to you." His face turned bright red, and he looked completely flustered. Hey, don't get the wrong idea," I interrupted with a mock scolding tone. "I'm an employee at a venture capital firm, and I heard your group has a big project in the works. I just wanted to chat." "Oh, I see." He exhaled, visibly relieved. "But that project's already been assigned to LB Investment, one of Nova Group's subsidiaries." "Well, that works out perfectly," I replied with a mischievous grin. "I work for LB. What do you think? Want to talk business now? Consider it a head start." He raised his eyebrows, amused. "Sure, tomorrow morning, my office? I'll be waiting." At that moment, Bella returned, now wearing a pale pink dress. Deciding it was too soon for a direct clash with her, I made my exit. My mission was accomplished. "See you tomorrow," I said to Andrew, flashing him a confident smile. Before leaving, I picked up a glass of red wine from a nearby table and handed it to him. "This is a Bordeaux from Chateau Mouton Rothschild. It's a famous winery, but their wines can be hit or miss. Sometimes amazing, sometimes average. Personally, I don't like the coffee notes in the flavor. But paired with pineapple, it might surprise you. Andrew took the glass, pausing for a moment before calling after me. Wait! I didn't catch your name. I waved without turning back. I'll tell you tomorrow. As I exited the banquet hall, I felt someone's gaze burning into my back. I turned and spotted the man who had helped me sneak in earlier. He raised his glass to me, a knowing smile on his lips, as though he'd just enjoyed a great show. I smiled back, raised a long-distance toast in return, then set my glass on a passing tray and walked out without a second glance. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest ones. Have a great day.